Good morning. My name is Roger Roach with APA, the Engineered Wood Association. I'm presenting Module E, the fifth in a six-part series on Engineered Wood Products training series, discussing best practices for I-joist, LVL, and LS handling and storage. Our objective today is to discuss best practices in handling and storage of I-joist, LVL, and LSL on the job site and the distribution yard. For further follow-up in this presentation, you could reference down below the APA technical note, proper storage and handling of I-joist and LVL. It's form number E705. When unloading I-joist, LVL, LSL, or any engineered wood product, it's a little bit unlike dimension lumber. I'm sure many of you have tried the dump truck method on the job site. Engineered wood is a little bit more sensitive, and we want to pay attention to that. So we want to use either a fork or boom type lifting mechanism to get the material off of the truck. Next, we want to make sure that we keep the material vertical. Vertical meaning that it's in its orientation as it would be installed up and down instead of laying flatwise. We want to store the material on well-drained ground with some sort of support stickers, and make sure those stickers are at least 8 feet apart or less, and that we've got a good 6 inches of clearance between the ground and the bottom flange or the bottom of the wood products, whether it's I-joist or LVL. Keep the material covered and protected as long as possible from weather, especially rain or any moisture, which can cause the material to expand or, over time, if exposed long enough, cause damage to the material. I want to make sure that we don't stack other products on top of engineered wood material. Again, as we stated before, it is a sensitive product, and we want to make sure that we do as much as we can to reduce potential damage to the flanges of the I-joist or the LVL material. If the product is damaged prior to delivery at the distribution yard, then make sure that we take note of that and don't send it out to the job site. It could very well be that the person installing doesn't see the damaged material, and they'd install it anyway, and then we have a problem with having callbacks and having to replace material after it's been installed. Same goes for number 7 here. If you are on the job site and you see damaged material, don't install it. I can't tell you how many times I've been to complaints on job sites, and somebody there that's attending the complaint will tell me, well, we installed it that way in the first place. You shouldn't be installing damaged material. You need to make a phone call to the distributor, get new material out, send the bad stuff back, and don't risk the potential problem in the future. Again, with laying material sideways or horizontal, flatways, I want to make sure that we don't twist I-joist in any way, because that's another significant stress imposed to the material that isn't intended from design. All right, let's take a look at a couple of examples here. This is a pretty good job here of laying the material vertically, stacking it on top of each other, having the longer material down below, shorter material on top. Prior to our arrival for these photos, it was wrapped also, so they did a great job here. I suppose if you want to get a little bit nitpicky, you could see that there's a slight bow right here in that rim board, so maybe we could have followed the line of stickers throughout the whole load here and reduced some of the bow that's being imposed on that rim board. And if you looked up front here, you could see that there's no stickers on the unit that's below and between the I-joist here. So we would want to have some sort of stickers here for the same reason we have on the ground, that we reduce moisture potential, absorption into the I-joist flanges, and just for damage when the fork driver comes and moves the material to a new location, that we don't risk damage to the flanges by having clearance there for the forks. And this is probably all around bad job here. There's a number of things that are going on. First of all, it appears that there's only one set of fork type mechanisms that they stuck from the bucket of this tractor out far enough to support the material beyond the flanges of the I-joist. You can see the I-joists are laid flat-wise instead of vertical, and this is a great shot of what that does. So on a smooth surface, yeah, maybe he's going to get away with this, but you get a little bit of a bumpy surface and tractor starts bouncing up and down. You never know what kind of damage due to the excessive stress on the I-joist might happen. Doesn't look like we see any tie-offs here, so the loads maybe isn't as secure as it should be. That brings us to the gentleman up here on the truck. He's probably not in a very good position either for this loose load to be transported above him, either in loading or unloading, whichever they're doing here. So as I mentioned earlier, there are a number of things going on here that we want to pay attention to, both in safety to personnel and reducing damage to the material. In this shot, again, it looks like a great, nice stacked picture here, but when you, at closer look, when you observe the location of the I-joist, we've got some longer material on top here, below the shorter material. In a lot of cases, we've got the I-joist laying flat. Again, once they pick them up, we're going to create that undue stress on the I-joist that we're looking to prevent. We don't have any wrapping on the majority of the material here. Looks like the gentleman on the forklift's paying attention not to damage the flanges over here. It does appear like the forks are out as far as he can get them, so that's good. So we've got a few things here that they did pay attention to, and a few things that probably aren't too good. Here's a pretty good shot of a truck loaded, either going to a retail yard or out to the job site. In general, they did a pretty good job here. They've got it tied off well. They've got the material all laying vertically for the I-joist, that is. So we have nice strong bundles and in the strength orientation to reduce any potential damage going down the road. Probably about the only thing that you could see here that we could get picky about. We've got one sticker here in the front half of the load holding these I-joists. It was good to put the sticker in there in support, but we probably could put another one back here and maybe another one over here. And secondly, you may notice that maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 of those I-joists are hanging out and being supported on this sticker right here, just this one sticker, because the unit below is a narrower unit, so it's not supporting all of the I-joists very well. Here's a great shot of a nice, clean job site. Looks like they take care for any sort of trip hazards. They've got it cleared out, so walking back and forth, laying the I-joist. They've got a clear pathway. Got the rim board up in most cases here, so looks like they're getting ready to start installing the I-joist. You can see over here on the ground, the I-joist that's stored here before they break the band. It's at least 4 or 6 inches, looks to be at least 6 inches off the ground. So they've got clearance if there was any moisture on the ground to prevent any wicking or splashing of water onto the wood. This looks like a pretty decent job site, looks pretty clean. They got the material stacked vertically here, but at closer observation you can see that we're dumping the material right into the ground, so any moisture in the ground could wick through. The minute we get any rain at all, they're in a lot of trouble for potential damage to the bottom flange of the I-joist here. No protective wrap on any of these units. This unit here, you can see also the LVL here looks like it's stuck in the ground too. But other than that, they do have a nice clean job site over here and a good clean work area. But the minute they broke the I-joist open, you can see here that they dumped the material out in a very random, haphazard way. And now we've got some induced stress. We've got not only flatwise bending when they pick it up, but you can see we've also got these bows or twists that are starting to be imposed on the I-joist. That becomes a really big issue when we cut this large of a hole in the I-joist. We've got a much more sensitive area to actually snap or break the I-joist in half in a flatwise bending. As we stated earlier, these are intended to be vertically installed, and that's the way they're designed for the loads. And they're at high risk in the position that they put these I-joists. And we go to really, really bad from there. Not only are these laid flatways, they're also on very undulating ground, not a flat area, so it's a hazardous walking area. We don't have stickers anywhere to keep the material flat and supported well, even if they did have them in the vertical position. If we get any rain anytime soon, we're in a lot of trouble for, again, foot hazard, moisture into the I-joist. There's just a lot of things going on here that they should have paid more attention to. No wrap. As you can see, we've got wrap in the background there, so it doesn't appear they have ever intended and don't intend to wrap this material before they're ready to start installing. Here's a good shot of a fairly clean project. We're getting into the third story, so things are just more difficult for loading material onto each floor. They've got a nice sized lift here. Looks like they were paying attention over here to forks and spreading of the forks. This gentleman over here looks like he's aware of the unit above him, making sure that he's not putting himself in danger. Not too happy about nobody in the forklift controlling the forklift. This might be the gentleman right here going upstairs to help unload. So at some point here, they're going to have to decide how to unload. Do they put the whole unit up, or do they start unloading piece by piece? They just need to pay attention to their surroundings and how they're going to unload. Another thing right here, they laid some flat material loosely. Again, that could be a danger for people around the job site if there was movement at all, or a breeze or something that might move those loose I-joists around. But all in all, they obviously paid good attention to safety and both themselves and the material. So we don't want to walk on the wrapped units. Just like on a sloped roof, you get a little bit of dust or water on the wrapping and it can get slippery. So for safety of the employees, we want to make sure that we try not to walk too much on the wrapping. Don't walk on the joists until they're fully fastened. I know that in the framing community, we've all done this, and it doesn't mean that it's right. So with I-joists, we want to really make sure that we've got the I-joist secured, and then we've got the sheathing on top of the I-joist secured so that it's safe to walk on the floor. And same with once the joists are installed with the sheathing, we want to make sure that we don't stack building materials over that unsheathed area as we're finishing the floor. And on number 5, we want to make sure that we don't overstress. So even though we might have everything sheathed, we want to try to be careful not to load heavy concentrated loads in specific areas of the floor where we're overstressing beyond what the design was for the I-joist. And 6, the common sense, follow the instructions that come with the manufacturer's material and or APA's information on our website. Another good shot here of material located in a number of areas, not stacked locally, so it's hard to just walk around and maneuver. So the likelihood of walking on material, slipping and falling is a lot higher. You see we've got a bunch of broken straps from the bunk loads laying around, which again are difficult to navigate and trip hazards for safety of the the workers. Not to mention, again, material buried in the water, and this is one of those conditions where you probably would be best to maybe just send it back. And if you're wondering about moisture exposure, you could even see in this little area right here, these joists have been here for quite a bit of time. The water has whipped up through that webbing significantly, almost the entire length of the joist. Another job site safety, we've all seen and done this, and we know that it's not correct, especially with I-joists, because we're loading them in the flatwise direction, what they're not designed for as far as loading is concerned. So this is a definite job site hazard for employees to try to use an I-joist as a ramp. LVL even, there are some LVLs that are designed for scaffolding with proper supports, but even an LVL it probably wouldn't be best to put it in this position and use it as some sort of a ramp device. From the distribution side of the world, this is just a quick shot or a depiction of efficiency of material. We know that I-joists, one of the benefits of I-joists is they come out in long lengths, and the reason for that is so that we can cut longer lengths because they can span farther than dimension lumber. So we want to try to pay attention. What this depicts is that depending on the depth of the I-joist here, there's a length over here that would be the least desired remaining length when we cut pieces off of the original sticks from the manufacturer, so that we have as much efficiency of remaining I-joists left for the next job site so that we're getting the highest value possible. So kind of in summary, a couple new things here, but we'll repeat them again. Never store engineered wood products in contact with the ground. We want to make sure that we have some sort of clearance, at least 6 inches between the ground and the bottom of the wood materials to reduce wicking and ground splash from moisture coming up. I'm going to use some sort of 6 stickers to separate the bundles so that it's easy to get between each one of the bundles or units with the fork to make sure we don't damage material. Store everything as flat as possible. If you're on undulating ground, try to build up some sort of supports underneath where your stickers are going to be at to keep the material as flat as possible. You want to maintain stack heights low enough or to a safe limit in height so that we're not stacking too high to where we're dealing with some movement issues of the material and rollover of the stack or the unit. Store longer materials on the lowest part to the ground. We've covered that. Don't stack other materials on the I-joist or LVL. Always stack the I-joist vertically. We've covered that numerous times, not flatwise, because LVL and I-joist aren't designed to be loaded in that direction. Don't walk on the wrap bundles. Use good fork and crane safety procedures. Want to make sure those forks or spreaders are as far apart as possible to carry that load, distribute the load across the full length of the I-joist as much as possible. Wear protective gear. Stay away from moving equipment. We talked about the guy on the truck there that probably wasn't in the best position. Drive the equipment smoothly. Don't change speed suddenly. So, driver awareness to make sure that he's not jerking or she is not jerking around and possibly shifting the load on the fork equipment. Stabilize the load before moving it. So even though we might be in a good position, you might consider stabilizing the loads to make sure they don't move. Maintain load height in the safe limits. Number 3, follow the safe procedures when cutting. So workers obviously want to make sure we're wearing the personal protection equipment, including eye and ear protection. Saws, again, we've seen this plenty of times where the guards are held up on the job site by a nail or something, and that's just not safe operation. Provide uncluttered work area. We saw a couple of good job sites where it was easy to walk around, good footing, not debris laying around. have good lighting, so we catch or don't see trip hazards with the poor lighting. And number 4, never lift the bundles on the top flange. So we want to always be lifting from the lower flange to not create the stress between the flange and the web stock that wasn't designed for. And then always post and follow load limits and storage limits on the racks at the distribution. So that's for this part of the presentation. That's what our objectives were, was to make sure that we covered all the important aspects of the handling and storage of material, both I-joist and LVL, on the job site and in the distribution yards. I want to touch quickly on fire protection. If you've been involved in the code side or over the last 2 code cycles, 2012, you've been aware that fire protection has been mandated, and that's it's handled jurisdictionally differently from city to city or county to county, but the ICC, IRC does require fire protection. So we've got a couple of publications you can see here, R425 and SR405, where we discuss those fire protective systems for I-joist that you can get on the APA website. And we've also got CAD details to match. If you haven't used our resource yet at the help desk, they're an awesome group of people over there that are a wealth of knowledge. They've accumulated years and years of questions, and they've got a great library for answers of just about anything that you could ask them. They've got an answer to. So they're a great resource. If you need any job site assistance or would like to speak to a local field representative such as myself, we've got folks like me positioned throughout North America and could hit most of the major areas fairly readily. APA's website, if you haven't been to our website yet and signed up, make sure you do go and sign up. There's in your profile when you sign up, you're asked a question if you'd like to subscribe to the Designer Circle. It's a great benefit. It's free of charge. We give you all of the notifications of material or literature changes or updates or new literature. So like in this case, if one of the pieces of literature we just talked about in this presentation got changed, you'd never know that. So if you sign up to get notification from APA, the Designer Circle is a great way to do that. If you want specific information from manufacturers, we've got a section on our website that talks about the manufacturers, a directory that gives you what materials they make and where they're located, and contact information. Speaking of literature, this happens to be the cover of our we call it the E30. It's our engineered wood construction guide. It's kind of our Bible of all of the needs that you might have regarding selection, specification, installation, regarding engineered wood products for floor, wall, and roof systems. Just about everything you would need comes in this guide. It's a great guide. It's Form E30, titled Engineered Wood Construction Guide. Along with that, when you find details in there that need to get spec'd on the plans, we've got a large library of CAD details available at apacad.org. And did we get any questions while I've been chatting, Frank?
We did, Roger. We do have a couple of questions. They came in while you were speaking. We can answer some of those now. The first one is, with respect to storage yards or the job site, if the material is under cover, such as under a lean-to or some kind of covering, building covering, do we still need to keep the material wrapped?
A good question. Well, it doesn't hurt for sure to keep the material wrapped until you're ready to install it. But rather than give guidelines of exactly when and when not to remove the wrapping, just remember the important thing is to try to reduce direct exposure of water, or rainwater, or ground moisture coming up, wicking up from the ground into the material, just to reduce the amount of direct water exposure to the material.
Very good, thank you. So now we've got a question that we don't have a big, tall, more massive forklift equipment like they do in some of the distribution centers. how far apart do the forks need to be?
Well, again, the APA doesn't recommend exactly what those limitations are, but again, use good common safety sense when you're on the job site, and you know, the underlying important charging part of this is that we keep personnel safe, and then we keep the material safe. So we want to just make sure that we don't have to be ordering and reordering from sloppy use on the job site and dropping material.
Good advice, thank you. Now, third question, from an inspection standpoint, how do we know if I-joists are too wet when there are clear signs that they're being stored in the mud or they've been on the job site for a while?
So somebody paid attention to the picture we showed of all that material buried in the mud. Well, you know, we don't know if that material's been in the mud for 5 minutes or 5 days, so just an indication of mud or debris doesn't necessarily mean that there's an issue, but we don't know the answer to that. It's very hard to inspect on the job site whether we've you know, impaired the structural integrity of the material. So I say better safe than sorry. Contact your supplier, let them know that the material's been in the water, and you know, when in doubt, if you think there's an issue, you probably want to look at getting new material.
Thank you. Now, last question before we wrap it up. What is the longest I-joist that can be specified?
Well, generally, I think most manufacturers send their material out at about 60 feet in length. But you could contact, you know, again, that from our website, individual manufacturers, and ask what they might be able to provide depending on the need of a job site, if there's a custom or a specific need that could be addressed. But don't forget, you know, the real benefit of the engineered wood material is that it can span longer spans, and that it can be cut specifically to the size of that job site that happens to need a given size, not necessarily custom, but longer than what you might get from dimension lumber or other materials. So the beauty of that is that we can cut it to the length that you need for your job site, along with possibly needing a long size.
Very good. Thank you, Roger. That's all the questions we have time for today. Again, thank you for being with us today, and this ends today's webinar.